What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Scent Bubble. We are in one of my new setups here in the studio, and so I will be talking a little bit about that at a later time. But without further ado, let's dive into a new review from a new house. New to me, at least. This is from the house of Zernell Gillie, and this is Jazz. And while I pull this up real quick, I'm going to try and get you guys a little bit of information. Zernell Gillie is a name I've heard quite often from collectors and niche heads. I'm not sure if it's niche or independent niche. We'll do a house dive later down the road, but in the niche collector realm, I've heard this name ringing in the streets for quite some time. Not really a mass appeal brand at all. But yeah, I've heard about him for a long time, and normally when I haven't heard about a house, I like to dive into a discovery set, but shout outs to Kix. I believe he's the one that provided this sample for me. So I thought, hey, let's go ahead and take a stab at it. We've got a lot of samples here, and I'm sure a lot of you want to know what fragrances from this house smell like. So without further ado, let's give you guys a couple of quick notes. 4.36 rating out of 5, but only 100 votes. So very niche audience, but for the audience that has put their nose on it, 4.36 out of 5 is no small score. So that is a mass appeal score, but the sample size isn't large enough for me to call it a mass appeal fragrance. It has dropped in 2024, so it's a fairly new fragrance. And a few notes from the brand. Jazz Extrait de Parfum by Zernell Gillie embodies the soulful and free-spirited essence of jazz music. It opens with well, actually, let's not even talk about notes and let's just dive straight into the fragrance with initial impressions. And since this is a new house and we're in the new setup, let's go ahead and hit not only the test strip, but let's blast it on skin. And immediately in the air, I get this burst of a romantic kind of sweetness, but let's just give it a second to, dry down. Oh, and that's a really nice fragrance. Really nice fragrance. I wish I could say it was something new and profound, but it is not. It's very reminiscent of a lot of fragrances that I've smelled. Those being vibrant, lush, somewhat buttery, but more of a creamy amber vanilla with spices. And this ambery vanilla feels very candied, so it's kind of got this candied amber finish on the vanilla, almost similar to like Instant Crush. This fragrance is like if Instant Crush and Grand Soir had a child, in every respect, in terms of the weight of the fragrance, the radiance, and most importantly, the scent profile. It has this kind of candied luxury sweetness from the Instant Crush, that kind of saffron candied amber feel, and then the lush, creamy, radiant, ambery vanilla from Grand Soir. It's not as buttery as Grand Soir, but it certainly has beastly projection. I don't know if it's a beast mode fragrance, but if the fragrance holds up in terms of how I smell it in the air, this should easily go north of 6 hours and probably pretty comfortably on most people's skin go to 8 hours. Yeah, very radiant fragrance. It almost has a kind of iris or violet leaf powdery ashiness on top of it, but you have to put your nose really close to get that. But I am taking note of that. Yeah, again, I think it's perfectly explained that this is if Instant Crush and Grand Soir had a child, in every respect, texture of fragrance, scent profile, the feeling of the fragrance, etc. This is romantic, but it's also like luxury fun with a hint of romantics. On skin, that kind of ashy dust or powder finish of that kind of irisy vibe that I was initially explaining, it completely transitions on skin. Everything that I said about that is virtually gone. Now it has kind of nestled into its warmth. No real powder. This is more of just a warm, spicy with a saffron candied finish. Really nice fragrance, a lot of star power to it. Again, it's reminiscent of so many things. Those two fragrances I named specifically, to me, I think perfectly describe this fragrance. I don't think there's any nuance to it that takes me outside of that vibe. fragrances like this do very well in the marketplace because they punch, they have projection, tons of longevity, have a lot of star power to them. This is nightlife slash cold weather festive, intimate type of fragrance. Let's look at the notes here real quick. Mahogany, bourbon vanilla, honey, white musk, cacao, opoponax, some kind of synthetic, tobacco, ambergris, and red mandarin. What I get the least is the mandarin and the ambergris. For me, to me, this is mostly a honeyed vanilla, mahogany, musky experience with some kind of candied feel. But you do definitely get the tobacco here is probably what's giving me that violet leaf irisy brush. But that really warms up on skin and kind of loses its textural impact on the fragrance once you get into the dry down. This is great. Fall, winter leaning or cold weather. The vibe is intimate, sensual, romantic, but also you don't just have to use this for a date night fragrance. If you just want to have kind of a cold weather fragrance with a lot of star power, I see this as perfectly unisex. I feel like it would be more fancy, pretty on a female, and on a male, I feel like it would be more outgoing, fun bachelor type of vibe. Again, for the name Jazz, this makes all the sense in the world, but what's nice about it is you think jazz, you think old. And this very much feels like a very, very modern fragrance. If you told me this dropped in 2025 or 2026, I'd believe you. Very modern finish to it. Again, it's almost even more refined than Instant Crush. It has the luxury feel of Grand Soir, but the attitude of Instant Crush. Very well done. It's a fragrance you'd want to smell and come to a lot. Again, I think there's a lot of fragrances that tickle this, but it is nice to see a fragrance that consolidates old ideas into kind of one fragrance. That's why I've always felt like with Aaron Terrence Hughes' Unicorn fragrance, I always felt like that consolidated 3 or 4 of my favorite fragrances. You know, the Dior Homme Parfum, the Dior Homme Intense, the Oud Wood from Tom Ford, the Effing Fabulous from Tom Ford. It just kind of takes all of that and puts it into one sexy fragrance. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not too mad that he took a lot of ideas that were pre-existing, because now he took 4 fragrances that I probably would have bought, even though they're all very close to each other in terms of vibe check. I still appreciate that he consolidated that all into one idea. And I think this fragrance consolidates a few different fragrances, even like, you know, Jazz Club, Tres Oros, stuff like that. It punches with that type of radiance, but it is signature in its own regard, because I haven't come across a kind of candy, instant crushy type of Grand Soir. You know, Grand Soir for a lot of people sometimes can feel very feminine, or maybe it's just too sweet, too vanillic. This has that ashy tobacco brush on it. Again, you don't smell tobacco, but it gives this kind of edginess to the fragrance that takes your mind off of the vanilla and the spices. It makes it feel more ageless and less feminine and more perfectly unisex. Again, just like a fragrance like Angel Share, the praline and the cognac is really what preserves that from going totally feminine. I think without praline and cognac specifically, that fragrance is a women's fragrance all day long. I don't care who wants to fight me about it, it just is. This fragrance, again, with the tobacco and the musk and the synthetic finish and the ambergris, kind of, again, sits it perfectly unisex, where it will transform on the genders. It will feel more feminine on a woman, on a man. It will take on more of a masculine, fun, bachelor luxury type of feel. Great fragrance. I give this a 9. For me, it checks all the boxes. The only reason it's not a 10 for me is I just feel like, again, if I had some more time with it, maybe I'll spin the block on it and call it a 10. But for me, it just feels like it's a lot of old ideas. Again, I know that sounds contradictory when I say that it consolidates a lot of great fragrances, but it just doesn't feel, in terms of my niche snobbiness, it doesn't feel very signature. It is signature, and if you wear it, it could totally be a signature fragrance, but because of its lack of originality, and because just as a scent profile alone, I do think it has star power, but the uniqueness of it, you know, it's essentially, you know, sparkling vanilla with a little bit of ashiness, you know. But it is, you know, I think a lot of people would call this a 10 out of 10. Let's put it that way. It's nothing like Jazz Club, if any of you guys were wondering, from Replica. This is 100 times better of a fragrance. But yeah, I think this could, in the general public, this could be a 10 out of 10 signature cold weather wear, intimate, romantic, or bachelor type feel. For collectors, I think it could easily be a 9. If anyone rates this at 8, you're old, you're washed up, you're out of touch. You got to get your nose on this fragrance though from Zernell Gillie. And I think, but I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research because I think a lot of these fragrances are after music or something like that. I forget. I might be talking crazy, but I'll look in and do a house dive on this house and check out a discovery set if I can get my hands on it. Again, 9 out of 10 for me. I think most people would call this a 10 out of 10 signature fragrance. If you're into fragrances like, you know, Wajan, Absolute Aphrodisiac, Instant Crush, Grand Soir, this is going to be right up y'all's alley. You'll absolutely love it. It, you know, in terms of is it better than or less than, I don't know, but it checks all of the star power boxes you'd want in a fragrance. It's very long lasting. It projects, it hums off skin. It's somewhat unique in that it consolidates a bunch of ideas. It feels very ageless. It's not trying to be too mature. It's not too juvenile. The balance is amazing. For all of those reasons, it's not a redundant idea in that regard. Like, you should definitely get your nose on it, because if you have this, you don't need all those fragrances that I just listed. It's kind of a preference war at this point in terms of the tonality that you want to go for. But nonetheless, anyone would be absolutely happy to have this fragrance. Again, Zernell Gillie Jazz, 9 out of 10 for me. Amazing fragrance. Get your nose on it. And like, comment, subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell. I do drop videos every single day. There was one thing I wanted to say, and that was the price point on this fragrance. Hopefully it's not too expensive. 30 ml, 120. Yeah, so I mean, here's one way to look at it, guys. 120 for a 30 ml is a lot. It reminds me of a fragrance like from the house of Nasamato, you know, very small. I believe those are 30s or 35 mLs. But let me just tell you, with this fragrance, a 30 will feel like 100 ml, because 2-3 sprays will last the day for you. I assure you. This is still ringing in the air. It's wonderful. So a 30 ml at least will feel like a 60 to 100 ml, because you won't be spraying it as much. Unless you're in like extremely cold, windy weather, then yeah, you might have to ramp it up to 4 to 6 sprays. But in this case, because it's an extrait, $120 for a 30 ml that punches like 100 ml, totally reasonable. So if you can sample this, Lucky Scent does have a 1 ml to try for $5. So definitely try it, but you should try it, because it could easily go in your signature collection for cold weather and intimate fragrances and just fun fragrances to wear. That's one of the most fun things about a fragrance like Instant Crush, whether you like it or not, is it just punches. You know what I'm saying? It rings in the air, it rings off skin, it's sweet, the aroma's got texture to it. It's just a fragrance a lot of people can really enjoy. So anyways, with that being said, I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your week, and until next time, peace.